Is Wonder Woman in control of her actions? In a sense, she's not. Like all fictional characters, she lives by the whim of the creator's pen. But beyond that, I often ask myself, is Wonder Woman little more than a robot, merely following her programming? A golem, according to my friend Google, is an animated, anthropomorphic being in Jewish folklore, which is created entirely from inanimate matter, usually clay or mud. Some of the earliest stories featuring golems see them as little more than mindless slaves, serving a role they were specifically created for. In some of Wonder Woman's origins, she is created by Queen Hippolyta from mud, given life by the gods. This origin has fallen out of favor in recent years, with the DC animated universe strongly implying she was a demigod, the New 52 going this route as well, and the live-action movies following suit. But in the comics, for a good 70 years, Wonder Woman's origin was the clay thing. With the obvious similarities to the golem, is that what Wonder Woman is? Created for a purpose with no free will of her own. While Wonder Woman first appeared in All-Star Comics issue 8 and had an ongoing feature in Sensation Comics, it wasn't until Wonder Woman issue 1 we got the details of her creation. Queen of the Amazons likes the statue, prays, and the statue comes to life. In this issue, Wonder Woman kind of skirts the laws of her people for a good cause. Don't tell my mother. This indicates she has a mind of her own, and it's not bound by her mother's wishes. After Crisis on Infinite Earths, Wonder Woman gets a pretty hard reboot, with some of the same elements from the pre-Crisis Wonder Woman remaining. Here, the Amazons were created by the gods from reincarnated souls of women who had been murdered throughout history. Only one of those women was pregnant when she was murdered. After a few thousand years, Hippolyta created a daughter from mud, with the gods giving her life. Hippolyta forbids Diana to participate in the tournament where a champion will fight Ares' schemes. Diana disobeys her mother's wishes. After the threat of Ares is defeated, Diana wants to go back to man's world, again, despite her mother's wishes. So at least where her mother is concerned, Diana is not a mindless vessel who exists only to fulfill her mother's wishes. But while Hippolyta gave Diana shape, the gods gave her life. So is Wonder Woman a robot meant to carry out the whims of the gods? Well, that's where it gets a little dicey. When the Amazons are created, Aphrodite says, "Hey, what about that little soul over there?"
Wait, there's a nice little one over there.
And Athena says, "Oh, I have big plans for that one." So Diana does have a soul, which I'm no expert on Jewish lore, but I'd say this puts her in a different class from a golem. But we haven't cleared the question of free will. It seems at least Athena already had some ideas about Diana and her destiny. Destiny, just another word for no free will for you. But there's a difference in this is what I have in mind and you are a robot with no free will. I'm going to assume the main function of this scene was to preempt jerks like me from asking questions like, is Wonder Woman a robot? At this point, the Amazons have only just been created. It would be one thing if they were created and then they failed in their God's given mission, and then Athena said, well, let's save this other soul for later.
Save that guy for later.
Then we can try to do what we meant to do with the other Amazons with her, but that's not what happened. It's weird Athena has plans for the soul when their plan A hasn't even gone up in flames yet. The gods know Ares doesn't like their idea about the Amazons, so maybe she wanted an ace up her sleeve in case he did try something, and he did, so they could be ready for him. In which case, that's just forward thinking, not necessarily predestination. But you might say, hang on, she said destiny, that murks up the waters a little bit. You're right, but if Diana is a tool of the gods, well, which gods? The six who created her? Maybe. But whenever we get a look at the gods palavering, they're not one big monolith all in agreement. They each have their own opinions and personalities. If Ares can and does disagree with the other gods, and Zeus does stuff his wife doesn't like, then in theory, Aphrodite might do something that doesn't align with Hermes' goals. So it'd be really difficult for Wonder Woman to act in accordance with what her six godly creators want if they're not all in accord with each other. So while I don't have any hard proof to back up my claims, I'm leaning toward no, Diana isn't a mindless tool created to act out the whims of the gods. With the free will we've seen Diana exhibit in versions where she was made from clay, I'd say it's insincere of us to even compare Diana to the Jewish golem in the first place. More likely, we should look to the Bible. In the book of Genesis, God makes Adam from dirt, and the very next chapter, he and Eve do something God told them not to do. On paper, you might say Adam fulfills the basic requirements of being a golem, but his actions speak louder than those words, telling me he's something more, just like Diana. So no, Wonder Woman is not a mindless automaton at the beck and call of her programming. There is the can of worms of robots in science fiction, and how they often go above and beyond their programming. See almost any story with a robot in it. So maybe that's what is going on with Diana, but with a more magical angle. But I'm going to say that isn't what the creators had planned for her. Sure, I'd love to see a story explore this idea, but as I mentioned earlier, with Wonder Woman now being a demigod, as far as I know that's still the party line, the chances of seeing this explored are unlikely. But still, it's fun to deconstruct these characters, what was intended for them, and think about them in a different way. Hope you guys had fun with this one, and I'll see you next time with something else. Have a good one.